Call the advisory committee meeting to order at 7:31 PM. Evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi.
Good to see everybody. All right, so mostly I wanted to get everybody together to the NERI committee had asked me and advisory to make a presentation to town meeting or similar on what I had done for a budget forecast as part of the finance subcommittee. But I didn't want to do that without first running everybody through it, make sure you agreed with the numbers, and that we could look at all that. Adam, who hopefully also is joining in a little bit, he had done some work on a presentation just to kind of look at like all the different not scenarios, but all the information on the project, not really looking at it from a lens either way, but just kind of fact-based, which he sent me, which if we all agree, we could probably synthesize down into basically an advisory letter like we did for annual town meeting, but for the special. I only get 6 minutes to talk, or I mean, anybody from advisory can get up and talk. So it's basically the usual 6 minutes, but I figured that'll cover off basically on what the forecast is and what that analysis is. So it's not a whole lot of time for anything else, but I'll wait for Adam to join. But in the meantime, why don't we do the budget finally do our minutes?
Yeah.
All right.
Where do you want to start?
Bear with me. I'm going to start. I am going to do LIFO. We're going to do the last ones first. Okay. We'll do a 9-9. And thank you, Claire, for sending 1,000 pages of minutes. I didn't have any edits to the 9-9 meeting. Did anybody have any edits to that one?
I have one.
All right. Okay.
Clear line 126.
Yeah.
It says I'm speaking. I think we did this as a scare attack. I believe that was scare tactic.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Mhm.
So noted.
Any other edits? Seeing none, is there a motion to approve the minutes as amended for 9-9-24?
So moved. Second.
All right, roll call vote. Howard,
Aye.
Larry,
Aye.
Barry,
Aye.
Marcy,
Aye.
Adam,
Aye.
Tim,
Aye.
and Andrew is aye. Great. 7-0. All right, next one up is 9-25. Was our one where we voted on most of the articles. I didn't have any particular edits. Anybody else?
I've got a couple of minor typos.
Sure, go ahead, Barry.
On page 3, the first line in the third paragraph, I think it should end on right now. I think the word now is missing.
Okay.
And the other one is on page 5, Article 8. It says in the second paragraph, I guess during the meeting, Mimi Luttrell should be informed.
Well, at least people read them.
And Claire, on that same paragraph, I think it's EOHLC. Is that EOLC?
What's that one again, Andrew?
On Article 8, that same one right there, it says at the very end of the second paragraph there,
Yeah.
accepted by AG and EOLC. I think it's EOHLC, if I remember correctly.
Okay.
Easy enough. Anyone else?
Here, go this block one.
All right. Is there a motion to approve the 9-25-24 meeting minutes as amended?
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Roll call vote. Howard,
Aye.
Larry,
Aye.
Barry,
Aye.
Marcy,
Aye.
Adam,
I didn't attend that meeting, so I'll abstain from this one.
okay, and Tim.
Aye.
12/17/2024. Bullshit. Does anybody have any? I had one, Claire, on line 44. Said AP asked, and then he explained that the has been. I think it's supposed to be he.
Okay.
Hands.
Any other edits?
Still looking for that one. Hang on.
Don't worry, take your time.
Missed this one apparently.
Down.
Mostly it was a joint meeting with select board, so most of it was taken from their minutes.
That's fine. We can continue. I'll just
Okay.
abstain.
All right, is there a motion to approve the 12/17/24 meeting minutes as amended?
Motion to approve.
Second,
Hello. This.
oh, I guess I'm seconding. Okay. Roll call vote, Howard,
I'm gonna abstain because
Okay. Larry,
Aye.
Barry,
I'm going to abstain because I wasn't there.
okay, Marcy,
Aye.
Adam,
Just kind of pull this one up. I don't think I was there either
You
for
were.
this one.
you were not.
Yeah, so I'll abstain from this one.
All right, Tim,
Aye.
Andrew's aye. So was that 403?
Mhm.
Okay. And next we have 1/7/25. That was the joint meeting with select board with CIPC. Did anyone have any edits to those? Excellent, okay. Is there a motion to approve the 1/7/25 advisory minutes as presented?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call vote, Tim,
Aye.
Adam,
This was the this was
you
January 7th.
weren't on that one if you want to abstain.
Yeah, I don't know where I was the month of December and early January, but apparently not on these meetings. I'll abstain from that too.
Barry,
Aye.
Marcy,
Aye.
Howard,
I was not at this meeting. I will abstain.
all right, and Larry.
Aye.
Okay, so 502. All right. 0208, 2005. This was another joint meeting. This was our budget summit one. So mostly Claire references the select board minutes, which I thought were fine. Any edits?
None.
No.
Cheer.
All right. Is there a motion to approve the February 8th, 2025 meeting minutes?
So
So
moved.
moved.
Second.
Second.
All right, roll call vote. Larry,
Aye.
Howard,
All right.
Barry,
Aye.
Marcy,
Abstain.
Adam,
Abstain.
Tim.
Aye.
502 again, I believe. And last but not least, March 11th, 2025 meeting minutes. Are there any edits?
No.
Okay. Is there a motion to approve the minutes as presented?
So moved.
Second.
Marcy,
Abstain.
Larry,
Aye.
Howard,
Aye.
Barry,
abstain,
Adam,
So this one, I think I was on this remotely, but it doesn't say I was present, so I might be confusing with something else, but I don't see any edits.
Claire,
So,
can we just
Did
double
they
check
have-
that?
Yeah, did they even have remote access for that meeting?
This was at the budget summit one.
Right, yeah.
Watch how good I did.
We'll double check that, Adam, and if it is the recording, and we'll double check that. If it is, we'll add your name and make that edit.
okay.
Yeah,
Tim
Aye.
and Andrew is aye. Did I forget anybody? I think we're good. Claire, that's all of them, right?
yes, it is. So the only one that's left is April 3rd. And what I'll do is the 45-day thing, I just couldn't get around to that. The 45-day thing is like May 18th, so maybe we can put that on the agenda for the next time. For the
Yep.
next meeting, okay.
Okay, so if we have
I'll
time,
it
we'll do that one. If
posted.
not, just throw a draft on and we'll.
Yeah, I'll have the draft and then so that we're not delinquent.
Thanks everybody for getting caught up there.
Hey, I think I was not at that meeting on the 11th. I was at the April 3rd one.
Okay, thanks, Ann.
Okay, excellent. Next up in our agenda. Okay, let me share. Let me you guys walk you through the forecast I had done, and feel free to stop me at any point. And if most of the forecast was done by Brian, it's the original one, but I just kind of tweaked it and cleaned up some of the analysis. All right, so you let me know if you see my screen.
Yeah, you're gonna have to take mercy on my eyes.
I'll make it a little bigger. It's hard to tell what the screen size, what looks good for you guys. So basically we did two different 7-year forecasts. One, basically, if we did approve the project, what do we estimate that our taxes would be? We took liberty with some of the capital items based upon, what we see in the forecast. Jason knows what we did, so he was okay with it. Obviously, he hasn't been blessed by capital, but the idea here was to show, not forget items that could be coming in the future, show people a real view of what the taxes would be if we approved everything, be, ultra conservative in terms of keeping the tax shift moving towards residential and even more towards single family. So kind of the worst case scenario of what anticipated, right? We didn't throw some other projects that have been, wastewater treatment plant for $40 million and things of that nature. It's my belief that if we ever did that, it would either be a stormwater and a wastewater enterprise fund, and would be a self-generating entity or private entity. So I don't see it hitting the general fund. But it basically starts with the operational budgets, and Brian did these. He used different growth rates for different scenarios. Becky did the school numbers in the forecast. I can walk through in real detail, but it's roughly around 4.5% increase.
And that includes the schools?
So 4.5 is general government, public safety is 4.75, 4.5 for public works. The schools, I think we're around 3.9 was the blended.
What's the basis for that, Andrew?
The 3.9 from Becky.
Yeah, what were the rates that we just went through
Of this budget.
for our past budget that just went to town meeting?
Uh,
Our average was like 7 something, right?
No, I think salaries was like 6 or so, but it included the collective bargaining agreement for the police and the other DPW, I believe, and the other resources. So it was a little bit inflated.
If that could happen again, what is it, every 5 years or 3 years that we change the collective bargaining?
Every 3 years.
And do
Andrew,
the,
does this include repair costs for like the roof on the other schools, or that's something we're
Yep.
gonna bond? Oh, okay, it does.
Yeah,
It
we'll
has
cover that into the debt section, but I just want to, yeah,
Okay.
so on the operational, 4.5, they had
Andrew,
more in public safety.
does the school line items take into account the expected operational improvements if we move to the new school?
Yep, so it in this one, it does. And then if I'll show you the other scenario, and those numbers are added back in.
Okay. Oh yeah, I see it.
So I have,
It does drop in 29.
yeah. So it's basically, you look at it and it'll be, we have another version of it's basically side by side that shows the operational decreases. So there's the operational numbers. The other budget assumptions are down here. New growth is 1% increase, again, conservative there. For assessed value, I can walk you through what we did over here, and bear with me if I need to make it bigger. So this is a assessed value and EQV forecast that I did along with some help from Mr. Sabelli. So he helped provide some FY26 estimated increases. Obviously, they're still finishing them, but he gave me some numbers to use. For the out years, 27 through 31, I used this Fannie Mae home price expectation survey result, which basically goes to different chief economists at different organizations or banks. And I used basically the average rates for the next 5 years for that. Again, it's not specific to our area, but I thought it was at least a decent proxy for this exercise. And then for the commercial numbers, I looked at a couple different commercial real estate forecasts, which were less than the residential, is about 2.18 versus about 3.5 for residential. So you'll see over here in the future, we're still trending that the real estate is versus CIP percentages are shifting, right? So, we were 80, almost 80-20. Now we're like 84-15, and we keep getting, worse and worse. So, assuming that we don't have a commercial shift and we kind of keep that bad trend, again, trying to be conservative on the impact to a single family home. So this is the shift between residential and CIP. And then I also have even more of a shift between residential single family versus residential non-single family. So again, it keeps going up a little bit more and more each year because the single families seem to grow faster than that of the non-residential. And then for the single family parcels, I used a 20 basis point increase, which it's historically around 30 basis points. So again, trying to keep that conservative in terms of the number of increased single family parcels to get to the average single family values that I used for the analysis. So I'll pause there if any questions on that. So that's the average single family growth rate and the single family parcels. Free cash was a slight increase, but again, as we know, that's always pretty low, especially when you look here. We were 2.5, 1.9, keep it at 1.8. So again, trying to conservatively forecast our revenue side of the equation. Local receipts, state charges, again, 2%. That's a pretty conservative increase. I think we were more than that this year. Overlay, again, 1% increase annually. Usually we're a little over that, but again, trying to stay conservative. Budgets, we just looked at that, the different pieces.
Is that for the expected hiring, Andrew?
For
Is that
which
one?
piece?
The 4.75?
For police,
Yep.
I think that was what Brian said. The increase was more, yeah, because of the CBA included. I think
Just
that
wondering if,
the new CBA, I think, has a faster increase for public safety than it does for the other CBAs.
but we factored in all of the new hires we need.
We factored in the new hires. This does not include if we added additional police officers, but I don't know the appetite that I would have to do that right now.
Well, okay.
So it's the three that we just approved, but not the, if there's more coming down the road.
Thought there were more coming down the road.
There's an ask. Whether or not the town supports it is a different story.
Mm.
I mean, personally, I don't have a huge appetite for any more staff at this point.
Andrew, the 4.26 is based on the cut of staff by combining schools. That's why it goes down so far in 29?
No, that's just the year-over-year increase in the overall taxes.
What brings it so low after 2 years of really high? I forget.
That's just the increase.
Is that some debt that's maturing and?
Debt is being paid off?
It could be some debt that's maturing. You have to go line by line to see. I mean, the debt's actually
Okay.
going up that year, so it
Okay.
levels off a little bit between 28 and 29. So it's probably that was too much more of an increase the year before because we're issuing another, long-term bond in 28.
Yeah.
Versus 29 is kind of like 29 and 30 are kind of when the debt stabilizes.
Yeah. I mean, do we really have confidence that we won't be adding any police officers till after 2032? I mean, the study
Hey,
came back and, I mean,
The study, I mean, we could add them again, we could, but that's in the grand scheme of this budget. That would be adding, I don't know.
but it
Three
really, I
officers
mean,
would be
all
another
due
couple
respect,
100,000.
all due respect, a realistic budget would maybe take into account the fact that we've added, approximately 2 per year for the last several years, right? So it's just, playing devil's advocate here. Like, I feel like leaving that out is, it's helpful to know that it's left
Yeah,
out because
yeah.
I think that's a
Oh.
huge ask that we are scrutinized for, this being
Yeah.
scrutinized quite frequently, that we absolutely need those officers. So I'm just surprised that we didn't include it.
Especially since I think you said you were showing a 1% increase in the number of residences per year.
In number of single families, you mean?
Yes.
No, less than 0.02%.
0.02% per year. Okay.
So it's like adds, I don't know, 4
So
or 5.
about a little under 2% for the 7 years then. 'Cause
Yeah,
it's
so if you look at
rounded.
the number of single families, right now we're at 2907. So it only goes up by, so historically, it went up, I don't know, 10, 12 a year.
Mhm.
I have it going up about half of that.
How many multi-family units do you have?
This is only single family, right? Because we're focusing on the average single family.
So where do we account for all the 40Bs and other potential projects that are multi-family? They're still single family, they're just condos.
No, they're considered residential non-single family, so it'd be this column here. Again, I didn't account for any of them because I'm trying to show the worst case scenario to a single family. Right, I mean, I could inflate this number, which will take some of the burden off of the average single family, but without anything actually being approved, I thought it was prudent to not artificially adjust it. And then if we get into the debt service, so this, Marcy, as you mentioned, these are the projects that we included here.
Yeah. Okay.
Choate Turf Field, Northborough Road sinkhole, some of the bigger ones that are kind of new and haven't been approved yet. The 3 million for Corderville Hall and Finn, for town offices at Corderville Hall and the renovation. It's town offices moving from Corderville Hall to Finn. The renovations there required for the senior center, and then what is required at Finn to house the town offices.
Andrew, I have a question on the turf field.
Sure.
The turf field at Algonquin, right, was very pricey. I mean, was it only $1 million?
No, and I gotta double check if we actually put 1 million here or 1.5 million. I gotta double check the number there. They think it's gonna be 3 million.
I guess it's gonna be smaller. Oh, they think it'll be 3
And
million.
I
Okay,
think the idea was it was gonna be 1 million, here, 1 million CPA and 1 million donations. Again, it hasn't been, fully
Okay.
vetted yet, right?
okay. I'm just,
And I think
something in my
might-
brain's not adding up. I thought I was like
Correct,
losing
correct.
it because I thought
No,
Algonquin was way
so
more.
I think the idea was to kind of spread it out, but I wanted to carry something for it.
right,
We
thank
always
you.
obviously have the big bogey here, which is the school debt.
Hey, can
Yeah.
I know this is tangential. Is there like a plan to fence that new turf field in right in front of the school?
The which one?
The choke turf field?
There is a plan. There's a proposal to do that whole field, the softball, baseball field, and the field in front.
And the whole thing's going to be fenced.
I don't remember if it had a fence or not. I would hope so.
It would have to be, right?
I don't remember the design, to be honest. And then Marcy, here's the Trottier roofs that you talked about, the
Okay,
Woodwood
thank you.
roof and the Finn roof.
Yeah. Okay, thank
The
you.
roofs.
The big roofs.
Yeah.
Really, $2 million for a roof?
Trottier's in almost
5 million.
Six.
Almost $6 million. One heck of a roof.
We added in, this was in Al's forecast, we kept it in there for 2 basically bonded road and sidewalk projects for 5 million each to kind of accelerate road conditions. As part of that, in talking with Bill Condiffy, agreed that we could probably remove the 400K annual maintenance and just stick with the chapter 90 because we'd be accelerating so much with the bond. So we removed that 400K. We have the Atwood property cleanup for about 1.7 million. And then in talking with Ryan in the library, they think that maybe by FY31, the library grant process might be reopened. And so maybe in FY32, we might have a project. You're currently forecasting about $12 million. Or 12.5. I inflated it to 14 by that point for just inflation.
Is the road maintenance here, like for all the culverts and everything, or is that separate?
Oh, that's up here. So you've got Willow Street and John and Mitchell, which we just
Okay.
approved. And then there's the Northborough Road one,
Okay,
which would be for next year or basically approve it in next year's town meeting. I think it would, then the debt would hit the following year, right after
okay.
you the project. As we all know, I still would love to see these in a stormwater enterprise fund, but that'll be a later summer project if we want to start to bring that, to fruition, maybe at a fall town meeting, but for now, they're stuck here on the general fund. And then the usual stuff, fire trucks and all that fun stuff. So most of this is directly from the capital plan, with a couple of these other projects that are a little bit further out and a little bit more conceptual. And then if I look at the same. Basically the same for the no Teneri project. The difference here is obviously you add back that operational savings. And I used the there's a 2021 report done by Vertex Engineering on the condition of Neary. And they can basically put together like a 9-year capital plan on things that need to be done that had, the roof and some ceiling tiles. And so you can
I'm
see
sorry, Andrew, which row?
so all of this whole section here is from that report.
What are you showing right now?
Oh, you might not be, I might have only showed my window and not my screen. Hold on. Probably why. Is that better?
Yep, that's different.
Yep. So here's the additional Neary capital articles that were part of that kind of like must-do capital plan for Neary enhancements. Most of these are pretty small items. Any of the larger ones I anticipated we'd probably package up into a little project.
The other item that clearly is in the background is the Plan B proposal, which basically includes closing Neary entirely, I believe. Which I'm sure has costs for the other schools, but these items become irrelevant in that particular case.
Correct. There would be a whole nother analysis that would need to be done on what would it cost just to close Neary, demolition, whatever you would
Right,
want.
which is non-trivial, but
No, but honestly, there's not enough information to do anything with any accuracy. So
Mhm.
I took a look at it. There is, and it was, especially when you look at what would we do to Finn, there's not really any architectural standards or any kind of documentation on that, like there was down on Finn. I mean, on Neary.
Andrew, I have a question. What about the kitchen?
That was not included in their piece, I don't believe. Let me double check it.
I don't know if they can repair that, Marcy. I thought that they were saying because of the asbestos, you really can't, but I mean, I guess there's always a way, right? But
I just didn't know if this was
But
like things that were,
I
like,
see on here one was an
basic
allowance to
area.
replace the walk-in cooler and walk-in freezer for 75K.
Okay.
I'd have to dig
Oh, in
through
the gym, replace the tile floor
Yeah.
in the gym, yeah.
tile floor in the gym. So this was basically any of the smaller, let me zoom in because again, this is really
Okay.
tiny.
So
Any
it's
of the
smaller things.
Any of the items that were on that list that were over 50, I thought it was probably better to put them together and kind of do a little bonding.
Okay. Thank you. Sorry. The kitchen was one I was wondering about. Thank you.
Andrew,
Yeah,
is
and
there like a total for the cost of all of these renovations that we could use to compare to the cost of building a new school?
Yeah, so if you look at just the if we look at this is kind of the yes versus no. So this is basically the difference. So these are the Neary roof replacement, deferred maintenance package. That was that list of projects I showed here. And if we wanted to do ADA compliance in the 2021 ADA report, they did, go town building by town building and what it would cost. And so it was 1.05 million in 2021 for Neary. So basically inflation had adjusted up to about 1.3, by 6 or 7 years later. In looking in that ADA, I think it's more like they convert some of the bathrooms to ADA, but not all of them. So again, the level of compliance that we would want to be versus what was mandatory. But I thought it was a good proxy as a base scenario. So 1.3, 1.93, 1.6. So you say that's 1.52, 3.5. 4.8, and then the capital articles over here was 1.3, so roughly 6.1 of capital investments over a 7-year period.
How did you get from, if you go back to that, those improvements were like $5-6 million compared to the $60 million we were told to fix the school?
Because we're not really doing anything we're not really bringing the school up to any educational standards, and we're not doing an actual renovation, right? This is just the base, replacing tiles. One of them is replacing, like, this isn't assuming we're putting in any sprinkler systems. We're not doing any structural enhancements. We're not triggering any code upgrades. This is just the, base. Vertex was just basically, what do I need to do to maintain this building in current status? There's no improvements. The base repair scenario was a full code upgrade, do the ADA, put in sprinklers, adjust the, inside a little bit to make it fit. So it's more involved.
So clearly this is clearly conservative in that you're
Correct.
showing the minimum, but is it really realistic? I mean, do we see a path that basically says, fix the outlets in the wall, but don't fix the electrical system? I mean, is that really a realistic scenario?
And I had the same thought, Larry. And I think if I did the opposite and said, oh, by doing this, we were going to trigger sprinklers and that's going to cost millions of dollars, people would say, hey, you're being, you're trying to.
Yeah. I mean,
right. So
I agree.
Again, this whole thing is trying to be as conservative. I mean, you could argue on whether or not we, do we need to replace the wood cabinets and the sinks in the classroom? Maybe not. Okay, take $400K out. You know what I mean? Like, we could get into the debates of the individual line items, but I think at 5 million, 6 million over the next 7 years, especially when we know we need, 1.6 million for a roof and, $1 million or so for ADA compliance and, electrical.
I don't know, Andrew. Like, you might recall a while back when the NERI project was first talked about on advisory. I forget when it was, and my first comment was, why can't we just put a padlock on the doors and walk away?
Mhm.
Like, it still stands. Like, why would we sink any of this money into NERI? Why wouldn't our plan B, if there was a plan B, why wouldn't it be, what do we have to do to Trottier? What do we have to do to Finn? What do we have to do to Woodward? Those are the costs I'd like to see. And I think town meeting is going to say the same thing. They're going to say, great, you're showing me what it costs to build a new NERI, but this comparison, nobody's going to choose to do this.
But I think
I
those
don't know
other
if it's
scenarios and those options, even if we said tomorrow we're going to try to do that, right? We're going to be years away from even,
Why would we why would we be years away to do? I mean, there are things we could do, like doing a whole new expansion on Finn or what have you. Sure, I get that, Andrew, but
yeah.
like renovating or reconfiguring our 3 schools should not take that long.
Depends if we pay for it by ourselves or whether or not we try to get MSBA
We're
reimbursement.
paying for it by ourselves.
I mean,
I think people are going to ask that question at town meeting. They're going to want to know.
and it's a tough, without doing a full engineering study. I mean, we did do one on Woodward for an addition or renovation for a grade. So change it from 2 grades to 3 grades, and that was a $90 million renovation.
That's an important data point.
I mean, again, I don't know. I mean, we didn't go through the full, engineering plans, but that was what the architects did, when they came up with that number. But so it's tough to do the what if on without having anything with detail. But I hear you. I would love to know the same thing and to kind of put it to bed. But I've tried to, with what's available or what's in my head, and it's certainly not, $5 million. It's probably not $108 million, but it's not nothing.
I think the first question that has to be answered is, with what we have today in those 3 buildings, regardless of if it's the best scenario or not, can it be done? I think town meeting's going to want to know a yes or no to that. And that's not for us to answer. That's for the schools to answer.
Yeah. And I think the question, I think the truthful answer is it probably could, right? But whether or not, the majority of the town thinks it's a good idea. I do know it's within the school, it's the school board's authority to decide whether or not to put, the grades into which school, right? The town meeting can't force that vote.
I mean, I think the problem that we have here is sort of a damned if you do and damned if you don't. You know, as you pointed out, if you put in our estimates of all of the things that would need to be done to Neary to, you know, bring it up to the point where we would be comfortable with it for educational purposes, you'd probably be accused of making the Neary project look too good because the difference might not be that great. But the flip side, though, is that, you know, what you're doing here is comparing a $68 million project to a $2 million project that, and I agree with Tim, is not really a realistic solution. So now, you know, we have no way of indicating, you know, comparing the new Neary as proposed to, you know, the realistic alternative, you know, one that people would be happy to send their kids to for the next, you know, 25 years or whatever. And that,
Yeah.
And I think
But I
that-
think-
I mean, this is also only a 7-year view, right? So the
Yeah.
the chances of costs not accumulating well beyond that over the lifespan of the new build to approach maybe again not 108 million, and hopefully that's not what we're going to spend, right? We're probably hopefully closer to the 70 million, but these costs are going to continue well into the future. So it is, I agree, like this is a really tough picture to make much sense of or use as an argument. I think it's really good work, Andrew.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
it helps sort of like at least in the first 7 years give a little bit of perspective, but obviously the story in a rebuild is that you get hopefully the life of that building over at least 50 years. Obviously there's some maintenance along the way there too, but you know, this Neary situation can be very misleading. I think if it's only shown over 7 years, and as everyone's saying, it's not even all that realistic anyway to meet the needs that we think we need for our students and teachers.
So Andrew, I
Yeah, I
have a
think-
quick question.
Okay.
What exactly what is the purpose of what we're doing right now? Is the purpose that at the end we're going to vote and say we all agree with these numbers? Or because the project's separate, right? This is just a number that you're going to present. Okay, so this is what
Yeah,
you
so
want to
this
present
is
at
kind
town
of what I
meeting.
put together, which is basically the same stuff, just in a PowerPoint presentation, right? And
Okay.
so, you know, basically, what I tried to do is be agnostic of you know, whatever you want to do. Just give an idea of what the impact of this project is on your taxes.
Yeah.
You know, in different scenarios, right? And that no scenario in my head is basically we kick the can down the road, say for, you know, whatever, 5-10 years, and we limp along with Neary. What does that mean, right? You know, maybe there's another project that comes up in that time, but again, that hasn't been voted on by the school committee, that hasn't been pushed through any process, right? It's still hypothetical, right? So only thing I can deal with right now is, you know, if we don't go forward with this project, we're left with Neary that we've been deferring maintenance that should have been done, you know, over the last 4 years, that we should start to do now. And then, you know, while, you know, another plan comes in, or, you know, or we just stay with it for as long as we possibly can, and, you know, and go from there. That's kind of the two scenarios in my mind.
So Andrew, the school
Yep.
board will put what grades they want in what buildings, but they're reliant on the town for the buildings.
Correct, for the funding for the buildings, yeah.
Right. So if we padlock Neary, they have to use the other buildings. Right.
Yeah, I mean, they would be the one to padlock it, yeah.
They would be the one to padlock it, or we would be the ones.
They have full control over the schools. That's my understanding.
They don't. I would like clarity on whether or not the town owns the building.
I believe the town owns the building, but anything that happens with this is the school committee's purview on what to do with the school. Like if we want to decommission it and make it a town building, the school committee has to approve that.
Yeah, I would like clarity on that, Andrew.
Let's see, do we have anybody in the audience that can answer that?
Well,
It's not about
guess,
making it,
Tim,
it's not about making it a town building, it's about shuttering it. Right, because the building has run out of its useful life.
Correct. I do believe that is a school committee vote.
Yeah, Tim, but is that, so that's one thing that I would like to see. And we're not gonna have it in time for this meeting, but what's not clear is if this vote, actually independent of how the vote would go, it's not clear how the school board would vote on whether or not to close Neary, renovate Neary, or any other option, right? Any other option that could possibly be on the table. If we know that the school board and anyone else who has jurisdiction over what happens in Neary says we're going to close that school, then that would be very helpful to know at this vote. Versus maybe there are people, like you said, no one would vote for renovating Neary. I don't know if that's true. I mean, at least based on the conversations I've seen online, there's people who say like, oh, the school's just a box, right? Like,
It's really like,
I'm not
it's so-
disagreeing with you on your perspective of Neary, but what I'm saying is there's people who are going to walk into that room, I think, saying, "What? Just keep Neary going. Kick the can down the road. Do the renovations. That's the cheapest option." I'm not saying I agree with this. I'm just saying I think you will get people who have that point of view. I'd love to hear like, nope, Neary going forward will be padlocked. It's not an option. We are going to close that school, and that at least gives us direction on whatever the alternative to Neary, a new Neary is. It's a major renovation that requires a lot of work, and we're nowhere near knowing what the best option is. A lot of other options have been reviewed, and for whatever reason, a variety of different reasons, they were not chosen. Plan B, like that's just one of many options anyone could say is the best option. I don't say plan B is necessarily the next best option. Who knows? We haven't evaluated it.
I think that's one of the challenges we're running into, though. It's
Exactly. That's the biggest.
Andrew, let me stop, and I don't think anyone has said thank you for all the work you and the committee have done this over the ridiculous amount of time, and I don't even know how many meetings. So let me stop and say thank you and acknowledge that.
Yes.
I think one of the challenges is not what the committee has done, it's the process the committee has been forced into by the state's requirement as we chase this money. Not that the money isn't important, but it really has pigeonholed us down to one design at town meeting where I think a lot of people are frustrated that we are pigeonholed into this all or nothing option to chase this money, and that's not sitting well. And I understand the committee went through 12 and knocked it down. Trust me, I've watched all the meetings and I agree with a lot of it. But I think even some of the questions on the question and answer page are, why don't we look at this? And well, we couldn't because, that wasn't part of our purview. We'd have to restart the application process. So an option was knocked off. And I think people are frustrated with that. And it's not the committee's challenge, it's the state's process challenge. So sometimes chasing the money may not be the best answer. Now, what that is, this conversation, I just had to say that we still have to figure out how to present this honestly, and I appreciate what you've done and try to show a conservative view of what it means to a household. Do we have to show a more realistic view? What is an answer? You've done a very good job of capturing all the other capital projects we know now, but taxes aren't going down.
No.
Right.
And that was my big thing, Howard, is like taxes are going way up. Like this school is a part of that, but there's a lot of other stuff, and people need to be aware that I don't want to surprise people and be like, oh, we got that Neary approved. Now you're springing another tax increase on us, right? Like go into this eyes wide open, right?
Right. And
Yeah,
that's
and highly likely the no Neary numbers you have are incredibly conservative, because whatever we do as an option is going to require something significant, whether it's changes to existing schools or building a bigger wing on a school or whatever it is. It's not a significant cost, and
And I think
maybe
that's
it's a
pointed at,
savings, we don't know.
but that unknown is that you're painting maybe you're painting too rosy a picture of doing nothing.
Yeah, no, I think that's a risk.
Yeah.
But
and
on the
so-
other hand, I mean, I haven't seen the two lines that say if here's the tax trajectory for the next 7 years, if we build the new Neary, and here's the tax trajectory for the next 7 years, if we in effect do nothing. In other words, the really conservative model that Andrew built. And what does that look like purely as a difference? Because that's really the extreme, is this it?
Yeah, so I think this is Larry, what you're talking about. So this is
Yeah.
kind of like the money shot here, right? So this is, if what the average single family home and median single family home estimated tax bills would be, with the yes scenario and the no scenario. And again, we can debate whether or not either one is perfect. What the difference is between the two, the percentage of that of your total tax bill. And then I added at the end is what you'll see is two different scenarios for the debt service, right? One was what we believe that the net debt service would be with the total project cost of 108 million minus the 35 and change million from the MSBA minus the 5 million or so in federal and states energy rebates. That's that 67.6 million. And then you see in the one next to it, I added back in the Inflation Reduction Act, $3.7 million due to, some people have concerns that that's not going to come. I personally feel it is likely to come, and I could talk about why. But I wanted to give everybody the figure that they would look at, right? So I think
So if
the numbers.
if I'm reading this correctly, are you saying that the median single family tax bill in 2032, if we do the new Neary, will be 18,984, and if we don't, it'll be 18,441?
Correct.
So if I have the median house, it's going to be costing me $500 a year. It's going to be saving me $500 a year to not do the new Neary.
Correct.
I mean,
Which
I
would
think that's a pretty strong story all by itself.
I did
And-
want
I
to,
think
That's
the-
just for the Neary, right? That's not everything.
That's the two different scenarios, right? So the big difference between the two, right, is this information up here, right? So you have the difference in the debt service for the two projects. You have which is the difference down below here. Actually, the best one to look at is this one here. So you'll have the difference in the school's budget. You'll have the difference in the capital articles to fix Neary. And you'll have the difference in the debt service net of, what we would need to do to Neary versus what the Neary project would cost. That's basically the deltas between those two scenarios.
so can you go back to that other slide, the comparison?
Yep.
So I'd like to echo what I think Adam said, is that on the no to Neary, right, obviously it's not going to be zero, but it's not going to extend out 20 years the way that the bonded one will. And we're not showing that on this slide.
So, yes, I mean,
That's a
Would-
big difference.
yeah, I mean, so, and then the next one is basically the total cost of the project, right? With and without the net of the cost savings. This is just basically to show somebody for the next 33 years, right, till 2058, right? Because it's a 30-year bond you cut, and you're basically 2 or 3 years into it. This
But
is what
what are the three cells here? The first
Sure.
one is
So the first one, so the top line is average, the bottom line is median. So that's the difference there. The first one is basically the debt service for the Neary project, the 67.6 million, plus the debt service for the $3 million to do Finn and Corderville Hall, with netted out of the operational savings from the FTE by consolidating a school. And I could show it the detail on that. And then the other one is basically if we take out the operational savings and just focus on the debt service.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm being dumb.
Yep.
The middle one that says 67.6 million. That's the Neary project. It'll
Correct. Neary standalone, $67.6 million in debt. So you probably have seen the 68.2 number floating around.
yeah.
That's the total net project cost, but that includes the 950,000 that we've already approved for the feasibility study.
Okay, so it's basically going to cost everybody in town over the life of the loan, if you're living in this town, right? You know, not factoring in inflation, it's going to cost you a decent car.
Roughly $33,000. Yeah.
Okay, and the
33
net,
years.
For only the school, no other big expenses.
Correct.
Andrew,
Now your total taxes paid over that period of time are probably in the, hundreds of thousands.
there's a hand up in the audience.
Oh yeah, Kathy, I'll let her talk.
and
Kathy, go
Andrew,
ahead.
what is the yes versus no? Is that just the increase above the Neary only, like the maintain Neary only option?
In this one, it's basically just adding in the operational savings for the FTEs.
And the
Looks like
operational
No,
savings
sorry,
is
the 15,000, Andrew.
Correct.
That is compared to what?
Here, I'll show you.
Is that,
So you'll see here. So you have the new Neary School, Finn Carnival Hall, and then you have the operational savings here from the reduction of the 9 FTEs. So that's the net impact.
And is the operational savings just FTEs? It's not taking into account potential transportation savings or energy savings or anything like
No.
that?
There's a bunch of other savings that they think that we would have an energy savings of around 50,000. And then they said also transportation they didn't include, or I didn't include. And then the other one was they believe there will be a good savings from a special education perspective by being able to bring in outplacement special education in with the new services and the new rooms that they would have. I didn't feel comfortable with how special education changes every year, including any of that.
Okay, so this is a pretty conservative estimate then.
Yep. And here's a draft of the detail on the positions. I need to double check the benefit numbers with Brian, but I think it's pretty good. But this kind of shows the individual positions by position.
Okay, well, I didn't understand the one with the 3 columns, slide 10.
Yep, I'll go back there.
I just didn't understand what the 3 columns. I think you said the middle column was what it was going to cost me in the average or median home over 33 years for
Correct.
the Neary school. So I'm
That's
paying $1,000 a year for the next 33 years for that school.
Yeah, basically. I mean, the debt service changes a little bit every
Yeah, I
year.
mean,
Basic idea. Yeah.
It's not a perfectly straight line. I understand that.
And then the other one is just basically, assuming that we don't get the grant from the federal grant for the inflation reduction and what that number would be.
Okay, so that just adds another $300, a few dollars a year, not too much. Okay, and what's the first column?
The first column is basically the second column with that cost savings, adjusted. The net impact
For the reduction of 9 positions.
for the reduction of 9 positions over that 33-year time horizon.
So you're saying in reality, it's going to cost me if I net out the operational benefit, it's really only going to cost me $15,000 over 33 years, not 33.
That's what I was trying to show
30,
there.
33 will be the debt service, but then I'm going to get a bunch back on the operational stuff.
Exactly.
Okay, thank you.
And that doesn't take into consideration what we would have to do to Neary, right? I was just trying to keep it real simple. Those 2 nets out, not the other pieces of net. I'm gonna let Kathy talk real quick. Kathy, can you talk?
Yeah, this is quick. I'm just going back to Tim's question a long time ago. And I just texted Jay Tellerman to confirm this. So he says, yes, school committee absolutely controls school buildings. They can cede some control to the town, but it's like mechanical maintenance. So Tim, years ago, I can remember John Butler saying this in advisory over and over, school committee controls town buildings. I don't know what the context was. I called him the other day, not to ask that question as much as to ask the question about the grade configuration. He said they absolutely control that. And I did say in the buildings, he said yes, but I wanted to make sure he really meant that, and he did. He says, yes, absolutely. I said, but can town meeting force the closure of a school without consent of school committee? He said, no.
Not directly, is what you're saying. Town meeting does control the money, though.
Absolutely controls money. That's how they control. Remember, they can reduce or increase a overall school budget. They can't do a line item change, but they certainly can the overall budget.
Oh, I see what you're saying. So even if we don't put any money into a NERI building fund, the school could funnel it from another line item.
They definitely could.
Got it.
The
Yeah.
bottom line spend.
Kathy, I have a question about that. Oh, hopefully she's still here. Does that mean that it's up to the school committee to essentially keep the schools in good repair, and that their lack of doing so, basically for the last 20 years or so, is part of the issue here? Because I thought that was under the purview of the town. But you're saying it would be school committee. They'd have to say, well, we want this or that done at the school.
That's where he made the exception, Marcy. He says, this is his answer. I said, do school committees have total jurisdiction over school buildings? Yes and no, lawyer answer in parentheses. So by statute, they do mostly control school buildings, but sometimes some tasks are ceded to general town government, such as maintenance and mechanicals. So I'm not sure, where you blame. Schools last 50 years. This one's lasted 55 years. So anyway.
Just for our future reference, like to keep it on our radar for the other schools is the reason I'm asking, not about the past,
No,
but
Yeah,
I think that's helpful.
Yeah, just bear in mind, like when my son, who is now in college, was going through NERI, they had already finished a NERI life extension project. Like, it's really old. There's really nothing that could have been done to maintain that building better, I don't think.
We looked at this first in 2013, and they concluded that we could close the school, but the school committee voted then not to close the school because they didn't want to close NERI. They wanted to close Woodward, and they couldn't because they still had so much money outstanding from the MSBA. So they punted it and then stopped talking about it, and here we are.
Oh, thank you for that, Kathy.
Right. Okay, get rid of me, Andrew.
Yep. There she goes. Okay. Yeah, so the basic question was like, so that was the analysis I did, right? I basically took the same slides and put it into a PowerPoint format. And this is another one, just kind of breaking down the costs. Adam actually put this together, and I added a little flavor to it, but trying to explain to people what was more likely than not in terms of which costs will come in. There's a lot of people saying, like, what if MSBA, something happens and with the federal government, will we get MSBA? That's a dedicated revenue stream that comes over automatically. It's part of the budget process.
So I'm just going to be practical with you, Andrew.
Sure.
I think this one slide you could spend more than 6 minutes on.
Agreed.
I'm not certain how you're going to get through what you need to get through in 6 minutes.
And I think, Tim, I'm going to just hit the stuff. And then the question, ideally, right? I want this to be something that we all agree on. It would hit these things, basically show the work that was done, the numbers that were there. A lot of people have seen some of this already. And then if we want to have an actual detailed report, laying the stuff out and people can pick it up off the table and read it in their own time, they can. But, if we have 6 minutes to just kind of be like, this is what we did, here we go. Look at your packet for more detail. Thank you.
Andrew, is this really coming from the NERI Finance Subcommittee, right?
This is really coming from, well, it's mostly coming from myself, along with Brian, Sabelli, Jason from a capital perspective. He looked at some of the numbers, and then Becky and Greg from a school committee, and Keith Lavoie a bit from the operational side, right? So it's kind of me combining everything. Brian did the first cut of this, and then I basically, wanted to add in some of the other, the roads and the library and some of the other things, so people think that we're not trying to cannibalize every other project in town, or what the impact would be if we did all of this. And again, there's a lot in here that who knows if will ever get
Do you-
approved.
Do you have a summary or a slide? Like, is there one slide where you want to say, here's the message?
Probably this one.
Too busy.
Yeah, it's all too busy.
It's too busy and you're not showing the life of the loan.
Well, the life of the loan would be this one.
Great. Are these the slides that you're planning to use on Saturday?
These are the slides that I put together for us to discuss on whether or
Okay.
not
Okay.
we're all comfortable for me to present them. Or if anybody else wanted to present them, right? I'm open
Yeah,
to that. Or if we wanted to scrap a presentation and go to an advisory letter, and like we can convert it into a letter and put it on the table like we usually do. But I wanted to get everybody together to show them, what I had done, and I basically just put this into this.
You're never going to get through this.
Yeah, it's too much. It's
Yeah,
dense.
I think that probably, 3 or 4 slides like that, for the very first slide, I think if you simply had turned this into a simple table where, the first column was, what is it? The second column is the amount, and the third column is a couple of words about the likelihood, because you're just not going to get through all of this text, and people are going to sort of stare at it glassy-eyed.
People are going to stare at it. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I think my concern is we put these exact numbers in multiple presentations in just like 5 lines, and everybody was like, "Well, what's that number? It doesn't mean anything if you don't have this. If you how likely is that you're making this stuff up, right?" So
Well, that could be a column.
You put that on the table in a book.
Yeah,
I do think you should do a report, even if it's just a printout of your slides.
yeah, okay,
Have it available, but when you or whomever I think you've done the work, you should present it. It should be simpler.
yeah, okay.
yeah. I mean, you think about how much time we've spent just asking questions about these numbers. So you can imagine what it would be like at town meeting.
And I'll
I
tell
mean,
you,
it's-
I'm glassy-eyed looking at them, and I'm good
Yeah.
with numbers, but I would need hours to dive through.
Oh yeah, I mean, the idea was nobody's going to be able to digest it, right? This is more of a look at what we did. This is what we have. We did the work. There's a lot of detail behind this. These are our assumptions. Here's the impact. You can look up your property and you can see what the impact is to your individual property. If you want more detail on top of that, look at the packet or go to the website or whatever you want to do to get more detail. But I just didn't want people to think that we hadn't done the work to actually try to think what this is going to do to our taxes.
Yeah, no, I think having the packet there, maybe having my Southborough publish a link to this,
Yeah.
like giving people the opportunity to look at it, but at town meeting.
I think that in terms of I agree with the packet, and I think in terms of slides, you probably need the overview slide, one slide talking about the yes, one slide talking about the no, and then the triple line, the 3-column one, and maybe those 4 slides are it. Something
Yeah,
like
I
that.
mean, we could basically put all. I have an appendix here, which is, the detail, the operational budgets, the detail of the debt. Right? We could put these ones in there, and basically just summarize this in a slide. Like have this one, the cost implications, and then a general slide. Executive summary, kind of 1 or 2 pages. That makes sense.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's a good idea.
Has the school board committed to the 9 reductions?
Yes, school board and I believe the unions.
And we're not going to see those staff numbers creep up over the next 8-9 years?
I told them my expectation is that I will see these reflections in the next budget if this happens, and I will hold them accountable to that.
Andrew, when did they do that? Because in the joint meeting with advisory at the Public Safety Building, Greg Martineau clearly said it's not written in stone. And now Hamilton said, I have a long memory. So was it after that they said we're for sure committing to reducing staffing?
And I remember it
Well-
being attrition, wasn't it? It was people retiring. It wasn't, we're letting people go. It's as they.
Correct. So some are positions that they didn't backfill this year because they knew that this was coming up, so that they, but the plan is if not, then they would
I
would
remember
put it into
that.
the budget for next year, right? And then there's a few retirements. There's one staff turnover that will not be backfilled, and then there's the change in position. But their statement is that it's not, there won't be any layoffs. It's done through attrition and retirements.
Which can't be guaranteed. I mean, you can't guarantee that somebody's going to retire in a certain year. I mean, we've had that experience in healthcare, that's why we have people say they're going to retire and then they don't because the economy changes or something changes. So I don't know that we can count on that.
I think my thing is if they don't retire, then they get laid off.
But you have a commitment to that.
But the union doesn't necessarily agree with you on that. Remember, it's a pretty.
All I know is this plan right here, the union has looked at. I mean, you can ask Greg or Becky the details behind it, but they were very confident in providing it.
I would just put a caveat on that 15K number is all I would do.
I mean, it's all of it's caveated, all of it's estimated, right? I mean,
Yeah, I
even
guess-
the final debt service, like we don't know what the bid's going to come in. We don't know if what the exact MSBA reimbursement is. We know what it's projected to be.
Yeah, I think
You know what the building costs yet, because it's not, let's be honest, the building is only in schematic design.
Correct.
It's not finished. We don't have a set of plans to go out to bid yet. And that's one of my other fears is we're putting this a blank check on the table for $108 million that we don't know if that's even going to cover it, and we don't know what the state reimbursement. You're right. This is all one big estimate we're being asked to put faith in right now, which is another challenge.
I mean, the state reimbursement is we know what the percentage is and we know how to calculate. If ours goes down, right? If it's not 108 and it comes in a bid and it's 105, this reimbursement's going to go down that same percentage. So it's not a set dollar amount, but
yeah, we're voting on a plan, right? Like we've all been around long enough to know, like a plan is a plan and things are going to change. We're going to learn things as we go. But I think the second we start caveating everything and sort of giving any signal that this is all just like one big for show estimate versus it being exactly what we were telling Andrew and praising him for, like there's a lot of really hard work in here. There's intense analysis, a lot of different people. And everyone's put their best foot forward to give the most accurate information we possibly can. We should acknowledge, as should everyone in the room, I hope, that like this is a plan and it's our best foot forward. It's our best faith effort. I would actually encourage us not to caveat all these things and just acknowledge like this is the best plan we have right now with the most accurate information we have.
So go to 15K slide again.
Sure.
Right? We can't say that the impact is only going to be half or less than half of what it should be because we have operational savings when those operational savings are not guaranteed. That's the point I'm trying to raise here. It's very misleading.
Is it though? It's not guaranteed, but we've done a pretty extensive
they
analysis.
looked at it and they don't believe that they need an extra librarian when you go when
Right.
you drop a school. They don't need these other people, right? These roles, they don't believe because we drop a school, there's this operational savings.
The point Marcy made is very valid. People choose to not retire all the time.
Then we'll change it to a layoff plan. I mean, but Greg is confident. The school committee's confident in the numbers. The union's confident in the numbers. I don't know what to tell you. I mean, it's only 9 people. right? I mean, some of these positions don't already exist, right? 4 of them, 5 of them are retirements and one. So it's,
Well, I mean, you could probably answer this better than me, Andrew, but does the school district have a staff number that trends downward every year or trends upward?
usually downward, actually.
Yeah,
It went down this year.
yeah,
Over the long term?
I think so, Barry. You closer to it than I am.
yeah. I mean, the numbers I've seen certainly. And the other thing is, the school board has committed to this. And as Andrew says, if someone doesn't retire, then they'll find another position to eliminate. They know what the deal is here. You know, you can't guarantee everything, but I think everybody is acting in good faith here. I think the school board is acting in good faith. I know Greg is acting in good faith. And this is their intention to do this, and they'll find a way to do it. I'm very confident of that.
Okay, so simply say it like that. The 15K represents a good faith effort by the schools to reduce 9 positions.
Yep, agreed. All right. Adam, do you want to go through what you had put together to show that to the folks?
Sure. And this would be, I would want to show it to the group here for maybe suggestions or feedback on what to do with this. Whether it turns into a document of some sort versus a slide presentation as a handout. What the goal of this was, and this was just a draft, so there certainly could be things in here that we need to update. I tried not to take a position, and I tried to keep it as neutral as possible, acknowledging what may be possible and all the arguments, both sort of for NERI versus maybe what would happen if we voted against NERI. And so I'm hoping that it's like as factual or unbiased as it can be. So one piece of advice I would be very open to is if you see something on here that you think is contrary to that, my intention is to correct that. And then secondly, like, what do we do with this? So going through it, I really tried to focus, and actually I would reorder some of this, Andrew, as I was looking at it again, but I tried to really present maybe 2 main options. So I would go the knock down existing NERI and rebuild as option 1. Option 2 is not funding NERI, which puts us into another conversation on, okay, what do we do with NERI? And then plan B, only addressing it because it's sort of become the elephant in the room, but I would put that third and just acknowledging that it's an option, the same as any other option, alternative option that we could assess. But right now we're not voting on plan B. I think that's really important for people coming into this, that if you vote no, there's a series of things that could become alternatives. Plan B may end up being one of them, but your vote of no is not in any way directing us towards plan B. And then as we go through, it's kind of, if you want to go to the next slide. So this is similar to the slide that Andrew showed. So we've already seen that. Then I tried to, this was like painful to do, but educational. I went through Facebook and social media and really tried to pick out the arguments that people were making, both pro or against, for all of these options. And again, tried to, in as sort of neutral a way possible, just like answer the question based on hopefully what's fact. So there's a couple of slides here where, people had said, okay, what are the actual costs? It's unknown, unknown tax impact. I think Andrew's slides help answer a lot of these questions. Alternative options are more cost effective or avoid the need for new construction. And we've done a lot of assessments, and on some ideas we haven't done them. On slide 8, it's more Neary's fine as is. This is a quote that I saw on Facebook. The building is just a box.
Can you just back up to 7 for a second? Sorry, I read slow.
Yep.
Thank you.
And Adam, I added the yellow things because you had like that question thing there, so I put those
Yeah.
from the MSBA, just kind of.
Yep. So just
Yeah.
clarifying what we're actually voting on, right? We're voting on the total amount. If we find that the costs exceed that dramatically, or we don't get the rebates we thought, I think we can do something different. We can come back and reevaluate or reassess. But if the costs go up, we are not it's not a blank check. We're not approving that.
So our share is 68. We're voting 108.
Yes.
If
68
we're
for
vote-
share, get all the rebates.
Yeah, so we're voting 108, but there's the last sentence of the motion is the most important one. I don't know if I have it open. Let me see. I don't think so. But the last part of the motion is basically the debt authorization must be reduced by the amount of grant receipt. So it's not an exact 108 minus the 35 is the amount, because obviously the grant can change and the dollar amount can change, but roughly that's the appropriation or authorization.
So just playing devil's advocate, we're voting 108.5.
Yep.
What if it comes in at 115? The state, does that max out at 35? Or does
The state max out at 35. We would have to come back and revote it. That happened in Lowell during COVID. Their high school, I think, went over 30 million or so. They had to go back and revote the increase in the project. All right, good with this slide.
Yep, thank you.
There's a lot of discussion on the rankings of the school, and the school's fine as is. That's why, Tim, I hope personally, I agree with you that Neary is no longer fit, but I saw on social media a lot of people who were making arguments that the school's doing just fine. Rankings reflect that, and with some repair, it's back in business.
Yeah, I would actually stand up and disagree with them.
Yeah, I'm just giving you, this is like, I went through social media and this is what I saw. Environmental risks are not being appropriately considered. People can decide for themselves if they think the measures that the team is taking to evaluate the environmental impact on a regular basis and mitigate them are good enough or not. But part of the plan is to take the environment into account. And then there's been some arguments about this is not inclusive, it's less affordable to live in town, and we're trying to go in a different direction than that with making the town more inclusive and more affordable. And so an argument that I acknowledge and give some perspective on how, in some ways this is being more inclusive to our students, and depending on their needs, this does address their needs in ways that our current school system doesn't. So again, it's up to the person, each individual, to interpret each of these however they like. And then on slide 9, a lot of a lot of residents seem to suggest that this was a pretty black box process. There wasn't communication. We weren't transparent about everything. I found at least, I don't know if there's more. I found at least 14 different.
There's more, but yeah, I mean, it's a lot of public forums reach. Yeah.
Yep. So people had an opportunity to contribute before now. I'm sure we're gonna get lots of people at microphones talking about things that could have been brought up earlier. And it's simply not true that there wasn't a forum earlier.
And we wish were brought up earlier.
Yeah. Yeah. I know everyone's busy, and I mean, as already evident earlier in this meeting, I missed some of our own advisory meetings, so I know it happens, but the forums were there, and it is what it is. What does a no vote actually mean? So getting into, I think there's going to be, again, I saw this all over social media, like what happens if we vote no? What about the other ballot vote? What's the plan if we vote no? Like a lot of people think they're voting for Plan B if they vote no. Right? There's no plan. There's no formal plan right now if we vote no. There's a lot of alternatives we could do. There's some decisions the school board has to make.
Yeah, it's back to the
So-
drawing board. Adam, I have one question. It's a technical. Is it 180 days, not 120 days?
It's 120. I think somebody threw out the 180 in one of our meetings, and we had to correct that.
I knew I heard it, just,
I heard it too, and then I couldn't find it in any of the documentation. In the letter that they send us, it's 120. So,
thank you.
and the other one I got the other day that was an interesting one was that even if we vote no on this project, as long as we use the 35 million for a school, we're okay. And I was like, that's not how the MSB works.
Yeah, it is forfeited.
Yeah,
So-
it's this school, unfortunately.
Yep. Then some
I think
slides.
it's the other way.
Oh,
Yeah,
sorry.
it'd be nice if the other way, as long as it's a school, but.
Yeah.
Yeah, then there's some slides I think I'll have one or two on, okay, like what can we actually do with NERI? And that's where I would love to have more definitive answers at this meeting to really be able to say, we have decided as a town that NERI cannot be useful as a school. But we don't have that kind of directive right
Don't
now.
get that, you need to vote the slide.
This is the tough one, right? I don't think the school board's gonna give you this.
No, they won't. So this is basically like I'm giving the actual situation, right? It has not officially been determined. Anyone who argues that it can or can't is making an opinion. There's been assessments done, and anyone could use that assessment to formulate whatever opinion they want, but there has been no decision actually made on what can or cannot happen with that school. One question I think we do need to address here is if everything we've been talking about, renovations and age of the school and anything that anyone's brought up about why we should move away from NERI, could also have the argument on, okay, well, if those are such a big deal, why haven't we done those renovations or improvements so far? Like why has it gotten to this point? And so I think we should answer that question, which I think has to do a little bit with the fact that we're going through this process. So we didn't want to touch the school in the meantime, but I don't know if there's other reasons that we can provide there.
If that's for advisory to say, though, that's not.
No,
not-
I'm just trying to give I'm trying not to use any opinions in this. This is all
Yeah.
just like, if there was like a meeting where someone decided something or, right, I don't want to speculate. It's just like, if someone made a decision that, it came up for a vote and we said, oh, let's prioritize something else, or because we're going into this process, that's the decision that was made. I don't know if there is anything to point to here.
I think that Vertex report that I mentioned, I do believe they decided not to do, because I think it started in FY 23 or 24 is when like the capital plan as part of that analysis was done. They decided not to do any of that until this kind of process worked its way out.
Okay. What will happen if NERI is deemed inadequate? So can close it, can make upgrades. What happens to the reimbursement? Again, just giving everyone a picture of what would happen. Whoop.
There you
If we went back into the process, we'd have to start over, or we would have to incur the 100% of the expenses ourselves without that reimbursement. Potential cost of voting no. So these are just some of the things we'd have to do to the school. I don't know why that first bullet got so big. That wasn't intentional, but these are things just again to give people the information on what came up in the report that would need to be corrected.
Are you saying these are required expenditures?
These, in order to keep the building current, these are things that were referenced as things we have to do. When you say required, like, can you operate the school without actually doing any of these? I guess we're doing it. Doesn't meet our educational goals, I would say, or safety goals, I would say no, but you could do it.
You could for a year or two if there was a plan B, is what I'm saying.
And why we came up with a plan B. Again, the way this process has been, we have one shot. We have one, you have it another side. You have one thing to vote on here. Right? And if that
Yeah,
doesn't, we're starting over again, and there will be a plan B. I'm not saying there will be a new plan. I don't want to call it plan B because I don't want to make
Yeah.
the assumption that the plan B that's being called out there will be an alternate plan.
Yeah, there will be. And so, but Tim, like, to your question, the school board could decide to close the school. So that's where we don't know. I think we don't know. Voting no could mean the school closes. It could mean that we do nothing to the school and keep it operating as is. It could mean that we have one-time maintenance costs and improvements to the school. It could mean any of those things.
Yeah, we don't really know.
I think it's
Right.
the only relatively certain path forward that we have is a yes vote. Shows this is how you go through the MSBA process. This is the school. This is what it would be. This is when we project it would open, right? Everything else is just a no, start over.
Correct. Right.
And
Any
Harry,
of
if
these
you're
things
trying to
could
talk,
happen.
I think you're on mute.
Yeah. So that's what I was trying to point out here. Like, the school could remain open. It could be closed. The school board has to decide on that. We
I
could
think you
choose
could
to
say,
renovate it. We could choose not to.
but I think you could say just that with saying respectfully, the way it's worded here, if you're trying to be not biased, this is biased.
Which slide?
All
This
of
one?
them. All of them. A vote no says we have to do this. Frankly, sounds
says
like
We could have to. We don't know.
Oh, see, when I read this slide, it was if you vote no, we have to put up to $20 million into NERI.
Potential cost.
Right.
Yeah, so maybe I need a
We
slide
just
on.
don't spend that out, like to be determined costs that may happen, but have been floated. No idea what it would be.
Yeah, I mean, we could take the costs out. To be honest, like, the slide that really maybe we need is like, if we vote no, NERI could close, NERI could remain open as is, NERI could remain open with potential maintenance costs.
with potential.
Right. Yeah, like, all three of those are possible. All three of those are equally possible right now, because I have not heard anyone who has the authority to make that decision. I don't know how they're leaving. So yeah, the point would be all three of those are possible, and I'm trying to lay out what happens in any of those three scenarios. Not that any one is more or less likely, or one is more certain in cost than any other option.
Adam, I have a question. You have 26 slides, I think, if I can see correctly.
Yeah.
And Andrew, correct me if I'm wrong, Jason Malinowski, Chair of the Building Committee, is presenting this or some relative information, similar information, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Why are we now coming forward with some sort of presentation like this?
I don't think this will be a presentation. This
Okay.
is like my way of capturing this information, but and we don't have to do anything with this either.
Okay.
The idea would be, if we do something with this, it would be in the form of like a written document, probably.
Like if we wanted to synthesize this into our report, like, this is why we think, this is what we think of the school. These are our concerns, right? This is, like we do our normal annual town meeting article, right? This is our thought process. This is where we ended up. I mean, we don't need to do any of this, right? But again, I thought it was Adam put his thoughts down on paper. I thought it was worth showing
course.
everybody and seeing if it was something we wanted to utilize.
Yeah,
Sit
and
this
I will
out.
not,
doing
I
that.
will
Yeah,
not
thank
be
you for doing that.
offended at all if we all decide here, like, we're not doing anything with this. It was educational for me, so I'm glad I did it for myself. But honestly, Marcy, like, if we say we don't want to touch any of this, I'm fine with that too.
You wanted to put, print your own handout and put your name on it, in my opinion, that would be totally fine. But nobody charged advisory with going over the pros and cons and reviewing social media. If we had, we should have all participated and all put something forward on slides. That's just my concern at this, ninth hour that we're doing so.
No, I agree completely with Marcy. I appreciate all the work you obviously put into this. And it's helpful, I think, for all of us to think through the process, but I just don't think it's appropriate for advisory to be signing off on this and presenting it as something from advisory, because I think it goes beyond what our role in the process is.
Yeah, and I'd agree, Barry. I mean, I think advisory in terms of, like, I was trying to keep it to budget, right? Which I think is certainly within our purview. It's certainly within our purview to opine in a letter to town meeting in terms of, like we do for annual town meeting, we do for special town meeting as well. We could say, like, this is our, advisories report to town meeting on the only article. This town meeting would be this, right? And we wouldn't do it in a presentation format. We would do it like our usual letter. But there might be some words in here or lines that we might want to reuse or whatever. So I thought it was worth at least going through and seeing if there's anything of value in there that we wanted to use to synthesize into a letter, or we don't do any letter, right? And
I mean, I think it's very valid and appreciated, Adam. I think if you wanted to, compile your own letter, on your own, that would be well warranted. I mean, I think that the more opinions and the more information out there, the better. I'm just kind of confused about why advisory would take it up.
Yeah, and that's certainly valid. So we don't have, I'm not even pushing us to take it up. I just wanted to share it if we thought it would be helpful. And like for me, it was just educational to go through and really understand all the different arguments on both sides. One place maybe as advisory, though, we do have a role would be if we think arguments are going to be made, to be prepared with what the financial repercussions of some of those arguments are. But it certainly doesn't have to be in a formal report. It might just be something that we have in our back pocket if we want to contribute to the conversation. So,
okay.
All right, well, we don't have to keep going through it. I think
that's fine.
The consensus seems to
For
be
that, it's interesting information, so thank you. If you would, if I could ask you to share it, just so we had your thoughts, I'd appreciate it. But
I would like that too.
Yeah,
if you want
I
to.
would as
We'd
well.
like to read through it all the way.
Yeah, so Adam, you can.
I certainly didn't mean to cut off the presentation.
Oh,
I
no,
was
it's
just
okay.
trying to
No, I
ask
just, no,
what we
I
were
had
going to
even told, I had even told Andrew, like, maybe it just makes sense to send it out to everyone and have everyone look at it independently, but yeah, happy to share it. So Andrew, if you want to send me the version you had, and because I think you
with
had
the
a couple
added
things, and then
MSBA lines, sure, I'll do that.
I'll just clean up a little bit and then I can send it out to everybody.
Yep. Okay.
So,
So I think in terms of the next steps, I am on board, and it sounds like there might be a push to, let's scrap the presentation and go to kind of a packet or a letter format, for lack of a better word. Something we leave on the table, and people can pick it up, or we can get up and talk to, hey, if you haven't read up, seen our packet, go grab a copy. It has the budget impact and, some executive summaries from advisory, et cetera, et cetera.
So
Do you guys
Andrew,
think that's a better course forward than a presentation?
I have a question, and please take this with the respect it's meant to have, and not as a doing. But you did most of the work, and most of this work to me feels like it came more from the finance committee of the NERI committee more than it's come from advisory. Should the letter come from that as well, or are you feeling strongly it should come from advisory?
I do
99
think advisory should take a stance on it and understand what the impacts would be and whether or not we feel it's in the best interest of the town from a financial set. That's certainly within our purview, and I think if nobody wants to stand behind the budget forecast, but myself, then I can do it as an individual. But I didn't think it was too controversial. I thought it was conservative and it wasn't really opinionated.
And again, I'm asking the question, I'm throwing it out there, and I think you were conservative. Like I said before, I think you possibly been too conservative on some points, but from my stance, I'm not sure I've read your numbers. I saw it on the screen today. I'd almost want to dig in a little bit more before I put my name in the committee behind it. That's all I'm saying. You've been living this for, I don't want to think how long now and how much every decimal point, those numbers at this point.
Correct.
And
And we have time, right? I mean, town meeting's, Saturday. So if we wanted to have another meeting Thursday or Friday, or just, handle it offline with, report edits, we could do that as well. Or, but I just don't want to put the work to put together a report if nobody wants to sign it.
I mean, it makes sense for our committee to have a perspective on the financial benefits of this or risks of this, right? I mean,
I'm not disagreeing that. I'm throwing it out there where the work came from. And
Yeah, but to some extent, where the work came from is less important than do we buy into the results or not. I mean,
And where the work came from was mostly Brian, right? It's just like when we do our usual rev cap and do the budget process. It's the same format, it's the same numbers. It's just, we added a couple things to the capital plan and we used a couple forecast rates here and, just like we did with the regular budget. So I tried to keep it as similar to our usual,
Yep.
every budget year we do a 5-year forecast as part of our advisory letter. This is just a 7-year forecast. That was kind of what I was trying to be, again, as advisor's representative, I just wanted to, as close to the numbers, move it forward. Even maybe I should have had you all in the workshop when we were doing it, but
I guess I believe there should be a short presentation. And I think one of the things that should be in the presentation, since on important issues, at least in a little bit of experience I've had on the committee, on important issues, people ask what advisory's vote was. And at a minimum, I think we should be prepared to respond with what our vote was, and at least a summary of, for the people who voted yes, here's why we voted yes, and for the people who voted no, we don't have to put names by it necessarily, but here's the reason that the people who voted no, the one-liners, why they voted no, and here are the one-liners for why the people who voted yes, because otherwise, it's going to get dragged out a little bit, and we can be crisp on that one ahead of time, because I really believe it's going to be asked. And therefore, having it down on a slide that we can put up and say, here's the answer, I think makes sense. Now, I believe that having a brief synopsis of a slide or two of the numbers also would be helpful, but I can understand if people are uncomfortable with that. Because I think that you had a couple of really good slides in your, you had like 18 slides, and I think that we can't get away with more than 2 or 3. But I think there was some important information in there that needs to get out there. And if members of this committee are not comfortable with presenting them, we should try to make sure that they're presented by somebody, because I think it's important data.
if I
And
can,
I'll comment. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, so Larry, if we had the detail in a packet, right, with everything, so people could go through the numbers in detail and at their leisure, and then had a slide that says this is advisory's vote, this is the bullet points for yes, bullet points for no, here's whatever tax impact and the the overall impact over 30 years, right? Or something like that. And, you know, the few key slides, and then everything else is in the packet, maybe.
I would just add, Andrew, what I liked from tonight in both presentations is that there was information, numbers, but not just numbers, that would offer a level set, which I don't think any of the other presentations that are happening are going to offer. They're going to be more pro-con.
Yeah.
Like, I think town meeting needs to be level set of, like, this is your option tonight, period. And some of the other things that both you and Adam talked about. I think that was helpful.
Claire,
Andrew,
did you have something? Oh, sorry.
Sorry, I think it was me. It was, I agree with Howard that I think this is really NBC Sub-Finance Committee info. In terms of the budget, I think we have to have a clear vote up or down on the project that includes the numbers, I suppose. But I agree with Larry. I'm preparing myself now for the Ken Advisory speak on why you voted what you did. So I fully agree with that part, and you know, we could publish that. But I'm just curious, like, why aren't these numbers being included as part of Jason's presentation? Like, it's a sub-finance committee preparation.
We could. I mean, I could just get up and do it as a member of the finance subcommittee. That's certainly what the option, one of the options, right? But I think
Yeah.
because I did it as a lens as the advisory representative to look at the same 5-year forecast that we would do for any budget exercise that we did for this year's FY25 budget. We did a 5-year forecast with Brian, right? We put that into our letter. This is the 5-year updated 5-year forecast with 2 extra years, right? With an extra scenario of if we say no, what do we think there, right? We could just say, if you approve this, this is what your impact would be. And we could take out all the other stuff, take out, you know, anything that hasn't been approved yet, the culverts, the library, the whatever. It would show a very rosy picture of the budget impact, right? Because it would be so small. And people would be like, oh, this is great, right? But then we would get to next year and there would be, you know, other increases and other capital projects that would come out that, you know, we'd basically be, you know, so we can go either way. We can just do our traditional, what you're voting on today will add, I think it's like 20 or 30 basis points to the FY26 increase. It's like $300,000 in debt service for debt for this year, for interest for this year. And then, you know, whatever it is, you know, for the debt service going out, right? So it's just, that's all we're looking at. That's all we're approving today, right? Is the $70 million, $68 million of debt. This is your budget forecast for 5 years, 7 years, whatever we want to do. Thank you, right? But then people are going to, you know, the question we always got was, yeah, but if we approve this, what aren't we doing? Or what, you got to show me my full impact with everything. And then it was, well, you got to show me the net impact because there's some benefit, right? So the idea between these two analyses was to show as much information for as many people that have asked the question, right? What is the standalone project? What is the project, you know, with the other projects in it? What is the, if we do nothing, what is it, right? So it's trying to look at all the different scenarios that people have asked for, but we can dial it back to, you know, basically a budget forecast like we did for town meeting, annual town meeting, with just this one article. But I don't think it's a fair analysis and a fair representation of what people's taxes would actually be in the future.
Okay, so I think I hear you arguing that because you've added all the extra stuff, it's more advisory related than NBC subcommittee. Okay.
Yeah, because I expanded way beyond the scope of what's in the NERI building. I used, you know, one of the line is the NERI project, right? And then the other 40 or 50 I added, you know, whatever was advisory related stuff. But again, this is a committee, so.
I think we need to hear that. That's all right. And you know, we have to ask the questions, right? So
No, it's good. And this is, you know, this has been a great conversation to, you know, again, I've been living this stuff in my brain and it's good to get it out of my head and at least try to explain it to you know, somebody else and see how it actually hits. Cause again, it makes sense in my head after I spent, you know, 60 hours on it or however many hours it is. You know, where are the pitfalls, where are the issues and where it makes sense and where it doesn't make sense. But now it's really, up to the committee to decide what we want to do with it. Do we want to do anything with it? And, I'll do whatever the committee wants to do.
I guess my inclination would be, I mean, we're not the proponent of this. We're evaluating it from a financial perspective and making a decision whether we think this is in the financial best interest of the town. But we're not going to the town saying, we're arguing you should do this. We're supportive, but we're not the moving party here. I'd be inclined to go the letter route and lay out why we do or don't support it. These are all the reasons. And if we want to have a section for if we say yes, and there are people who vote no, if we want to have a section for why they don't support it, have all of that and have the numbers that you presented tonight as an attachment to that letter so people can see all the work that's gone behind it and lay that out. And I guess I wouldn't have, I'm not strongly opposed, but I wouldn't have advisory making a presentation. Certainly at the meeting, I would expect people to ask, and you or whoever else can say whatever they want to say at that point. But seems to me if we get up and make this spiel, we then become proponents of a yes when I don't think that's our position.
And I think that makes sense because, as you know, I don't like to make the presentations. And I won't provide my opinion unless asked. So I think that makes a lot of sense, right? Okay, let's synthesize. And tonight I think we should revote it now that we have everybody here. So let's revote it. Then we can, figure out the yes, no portion of it, put it down on paper in a report, advisory voted, whatever it is. The yeses, this is a synopsis of why they're in favor of the project. The no's why they're not in favor of the project. Here's a, detailed explanation of forecasted financials for yes and no scenarios, whatever we want to do, right, in a detail thing. And I think that should be enough for a report.
So, sorry, one counter there though. I guess, what about the numbers that Andrew presented today would lead someone to believe that we are pro or a supporter of the project? Because the numbers are, here's what we believe the tax implications will be. And it's for the voters to decide on whether that is a substantial difference or not.
At least that's how I tried to build it, right?
That's how I feel.
Yeah, I think that is really like the crux of the argument for this is too expensive, I can't afford it, is the impact on my taxes. Where are they going to get the estimate for what the impact of their taxes is if it's not from advisory?
Well, it would be in the letter and the attachment.
Yeah. So I think it's so. Yeah. So I think Adam,
Not
your
everyone
point-
will read it. I think everyone in the room, personally, everyone in the room should hear the same information when it's something as critical as here's the implication on your taxes to the best of our knowledge.
Adam, I think what we're saying though is that that's the responsibility of the NBC. Like they had a sub-finance committee for 3 years. Like that's the work they did. Advisory has not sat down and crunched all these numbers.
Will they be someone should present it in the
Yeah.
room, would be my argument, whether it's advisory or otherwise, maybe.
And I think,
Maybe that's
I
valid.
think one of the challenges is because we haven't dug through them. Right, we all said that maybe the numbers shown were even too conservative, so I'm not sure we all are at the point where we necessarily even agree with the numbers that we're saying we're gonna present. And that's shame on us, because we need to be, maybe we need to dig, maybe we need to wait, dig through them during the week and come back on Thursday or something, but.
Yeah, I can set up a call for Thursday, find a time for us, and we can. I can send out all the. You guys will tell me whether or not you want the PowerPoint, PDF, or Excel versions.
Andrew, why couldn't we have the numbers at the end and say as chair of advisory and representative on NBC, these are your numbers, the numbers that you came up with, right? I mean, we trust that you came up with the numbers. It's just that we haven't really vetted them. I mean, not that we, I
mean,
don't even know how we possibly would.
I mean,
But-
I would personally feel better if they were at the end of the advisory letter, that the rest of the committee would say that we've reviewed them and, believe that to be an accurate analysis, or at least, directionally accurate. But
I can tell you one item that hangs me up. The whole notion that we're gonna, have a cost savings at the school level for people retiring. That to me is not, there is no board or union that's going to support laying someone off right before they're supposed to retire. I mean, it just isn't gonna happen.
Yeah, but Marcy, he has numbers taking that out of the equation,
Okay,
right? So
Then
he has
maybe
the
those-
numbers, assuming
those
none of that
numbers will
comes
be
to fruition.
revised.
So we don't, we could completely ignore or give a presentation without the, efficiency piece, and that could be in a report that's in a, an appendix to this. I think at least the numbers on, hey, if this just straight up debt, like what is the impact on taxes? I
Your
think,
calculator is out there. That slide is good. I mean, I think some of it, not to cut you off, Adam, I'm sorry, but
No,
like,
it's
I think some of it is very relevant, whether or not we all agree on all of the line items,
The flip,
And we won't.
flip side of
We
the
won't
flip side of that, though,
We won't.
the flip side of
And-
that, Marcy, is that even if they don't have 9 FTEs disappearing on day one, this is a 33 or a 30-year bond, and over those 30 years, those 9 people are in fact going to disappear, and the cost of the bond stays fairly constant, but the salaries of those people are going up at 3 or 4% a year. So actually,
Correct.
the impact is
I
huge.
would be careful in that, because the moment our superintendent retires and we get a new one, that new superintendent is not beholden to the former superintendent's promises. Right, so
I mean, there's so many factors there.
there's so many factors here. I think the comment about the current superintendent and school board will work in good faith to make this happen, I think that's fair.
yeah, which at this point in time, it's a plan of a plan of a plan, right? It's the best we can have.
So I guess, I have 2 views. I fully understand the argument to not put any of the number charts in our advisory presentation, and I'd be fine with that. The only problem is that, for example, the way I would justify my vote is actually based on some of those numbers. So if somebody said, well, why did you vote yes, or why did you vote no? The answer is going to be because the numbers in wherever those numbers are going to live, persuaded me that it was the right thing to do. So we need to have those numbers available somewhere to refer to, whether it's in a separate handout or advisory letter, or something that the building committee finance subcommittee publishes. But the work that you did there, I think, is really important and needs to be available to people to help justify our decisions as well as theirs.
Yeah, we could put that, analysis out as the NERI Finance Subcommittee's analysis on tax impact. But to your point, if advisory is utilizing that in their decision-making process, right, it's weird that they wouldn't also agree with the numbers, but.
Right. Well, that's the struggle I'm having here, because
Yeah.
I can see both sides of that issue.
Yeah. Okay.
yeah. I mean, I think I view our role in this as providing information, or providing a service basically for the town, which is not everyone in that room has to dig through that model with the same amount of detail that maybe we're obligated to, if we're going to use it to make a decision or provide the information. And so I actually would propose that we do at least our own due diligence and look at it, and whether it ends up in an advisory report, or I like your idea, Andrew, of like a subcommittee analysis and show, show the work there. But I do feel like someone from stage, whether it's advisory or not, needs to be able to stand up and say, like, this is our best effort to tell you what the tax impact is. And if anyone in advisory is going to use that information to support or not support, we have to have at least done the due diligence to be able to tell everyone, we looked through this and this is why we believe it, or have questions about it.
What if we do this, in terms of moving this forward? I'll set up another meeting for later this week. I don't know what people's schedules look like, even if it's just a quick touch point. But maybe Thursday night, if that works for people. I have time to get that in, right? Yeah, if I do it tomorrow. And I think, we'll rewrote it tonight and I'll work with myself, or if anybody wants to volunteer, we could put together, however we vote, kind of that pros, cons, just a regular advisory letter. This is our stance on Article 1, right? I'll send whatever spreadsheets or PowerPoint or PDF versions of the budgets that people want to dig into as much details as they want. If people have questions, reach out to me individually and we can walk through it. We won't have a quorum there. And we can dig through all the details. And then, Thursday night, we can review the letter, make sure everybody's okay with it, make any edits we need to. And then if people are comfortable adding it as an appendix, fine. If not, I can keep it as a NERI subcommittee result. Make sense?
Are you going to have an agenda out for pre-meeting? In case we need to meet?
We have a room available. I wasn't sure if we would need to, but I will put one out for Saturday morning as well. It's a good point, Tim, just in case we need to do any last minute conversations.
Thank you.
Write that down.
Speaking of
I'll put out an
Saturday-
agenda for Thursday night. Like, I don't know,
And Thursday,
Thursday work for people?
what time?
You guys tell me what time works for you.
I'm leaving town on Thursday, so I won't be around.
I'm not certain I'll be around.
Would it be during the day be better, or Friday during the day, or Friday night? Either works.
Friday works for me.
Friday night, okay. Any
But,
specific time?
I don't know if it works for anybody else.
Yeah, I mean, and I'm around this week, so any of them work for me.
Okay,
Friday actually works better for me only because
that works for me. Want to do 7:30 again or 8? Adam, I don't know if that
This
works
is
for
for
you.
Friday or Thursday? This is Friday?
Friday.
That sounds.
How will we turn the letter around overnight?
So I would work on a draft, or somebody can work on a draft, and then we would send it out ahead of time. Everybody would get their edits, and then we would edit it together. Or, if anybody has a better solution, I don't know.
I don't know. I just think that's that's going to be a lot of pressure, Andrew, to get it turned around by Saturday morning. Like,
Friday
I think-
sounds tough.
Well, it's if we
Yeah.
want it, we have to wait 48 hours to post a meeting, so it's either Thursday or Friday,
okay.
right? Unless
Thursday at 7:30, or I have a meeting at 7. I can do it. I can cut that short and be here at 7:30, or we can do it at that's
Howard, you're talking about Friday or Thursday?
Thursday.
Okay.
I'm wide open. Seeing if Friday sounds like it's cutting it close, if we do it Thursday, if I could ask for 8 o'clock, if that works for everyone.
Yep.
Thursday at 8
Thursday at 8 in the morning, you mean?
p.m.
Oh, in the
But not,
morning?
okay. No, sorry.
Oh,
I thought you said,
Is it morning?
it's at night.
I was
Sorry,
thinking
Adam.
Thursday,
You've now
8
confused all
o'clock
of us.
p.m. Eastern Standard Time.
Sorry.
Okay. Because morning would be
100
fine
hours.
too, actually.
Okay. All right, and then Saturday morning. Okay.
Are we
Alright.
taking a vote on the project tonight so that we will be
I
able
think
to
so.
write the sections? Okay.
Especially because we have all 7. If we don't have everybody on Thursday, I want to make sure we get that in tonight.
Okay.
So Marcy, will you call the vote? I have to abstain from the voting process.
What is is
The
there a
motion would
number?
be, I think, Article 1. So, yeah.
Oh, it's Article 1.
Motion would be, I think, for advisory to support Article 1. At town meeting.
Okay. All right. I make a motion for advisory to support Article 1 at the special town meeting on Saturday,
Second,
the 10th. Barry second, okay.
Yeah.
Any discussion? All right, roll call vote, Barry,
aye.
Adam,
Aye.
Tim,
Neutral.
I don't know what that means. Larry,
Aye.
Howard,
Go with neutral.
Neutral. I feel like, I feel like town meeting should have the opportunity to vote on this. It's much like a CPC project where I feel that we should put this in front of them. We should make certain that, you know, all the level setting is done and they have the information that they need, and then they should vote, and that's that. For myself, as an advisory member, I'm not compelled to thumbs up or thumbs down it.
so is that an abstain, Tim?
It's
For the
Yeah.
minute, I'm trying to figure out how to record this. I would
yeah, I'm
imagine
not
it's
certain if there's
abstain.
another category. I'm not quite abstaining.
Okay. All right, so Howard, you're also neutral.
I mean, abstain, neutral, whatever terminology you use. I'm still on the fence, and I want to read through the numbers, and I believe, you know, just as everyone else, I think this is so complex. I want to hear what town meeting really has to say.
All right.
With my final decision. It's a big one, and I don't think everything's come out yet. So.
Jones is no. So that would be 3 yes, 2 neutral, 1 no.
One abstain.
Sorry, it would be 3, 1, 2. Right, 3 yes,
3
1 no, and 2 neutral.
Undecided,
I mean-
neutral, and 1.
2 neutral and 1 abstain.
Yeah, I'm
It
not
would
even
be
sure.
1 neutral,
I'm
1
sure if I'm
abstain.
abstain or just no vote.
All right, I didn't call you, Andrew, because I didn't think you were voting. Okay. So Andrew's
vote.
not voting.
Okay, great. What else do we have on the agenda for tonight?
While you're looking at that, one quick question. Is there gonna be that auditorium, or sorry, not auditorium, the cafeteria space open?
So for town meeting, there will be, originally it was going to be the kids were going to be in the auditorium. I believe they just switched it to actually the kids will be in the gym,
Oh,
and the auditorium will be the main space. So kind of like, so the big giant gym will be open for overflow and kid space, and the auditorium will be the main meeting space.
okay. And is it adult, like parent supervision in the gym? Or is there?
Yep. I'll send out, Jim had put together like a 1-pager on town meeting, kind of, you know, how you check in. And so it's, kids are allowed in the gymnasium with adult, you know, supervision. No pre-registration required.
Okay.
And Claire, you had your hand up for a second there. You good?
There's a
Yeah,
hand-
thanks. I was headed up for the, audience participation part. Are we there yet?
All right,
Oh,
I'll
on
let-
the agenda. Did you
Oh,
want to
yeah.
see the
So does
agenda?
any other business properly brought forth by our committee before we get to public comment? All right, good. All right, public comment. Claire, go ahead.
Okay, thanks. So speaking from somebody from the audience, I think that you guys have the best idea in terms of putting together something that I had assumed. I'm just putting myself in terms of one of those people who's going to be at town meeting and say, well, what's advisory's opinion? Or what's advisory's thought? So just a couple things is, Andrew, Brian, and Paul all met in terms of what the tax impact is going to be. That's a real question that a lot of people have said. And I think that if you can, in what you're proposing to do, is to put together out the 7 to 10 year projection of what it's gonna be on the taxes. It's a fabulous idea. You know, my Southborough does some of that stuff sometimes, and it's really good to just have it netted out in terms of what, you know, what it's gonna be with everything that we would do ordinarily, and then the impact of the school with those numbers. So thank you.
Um, let's see, Mr. Miller. Go ahead, Kevin.
Hey guys, just a quick note. There's no such thing as as a neutral vote in Robert's Rules of Order. It is an abstention. An abstention indicates neither support nor opposition. So, Howard and Tim, you're going to have to take a stand. Yes, no, or abstain, but you can't vote neutral. Thank you.
Thank you. Abstain.
Any other questions from the public? Right. Seeing no more questions, do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second?
Second, so moved.
Roll call vote. Howard,
Aye.
Larry,
I guess I can't abstain, right? Yes,
Barry.
You took my joke, Larry.
the
sorry.
easiest vote of the night, right? Barry?
I was totally gonna vote neutral on this one.
We'll just stay on the Zoom together.
Exactly.
All right, Adam,
Aye.
Marcy,
Aye.
Tim,
Aye.
Andrew is aye. All right.
Andrew,
all.
can you send your slides out?
Yeah, I'll send that deck out. I'll send a more detailed PDF version of it if people don't want to open the Excels. Do people want the Excels as well?
Yes, please.
Sure.
I'll send you
Yeah.
as much detail as you could possibly need. All right,
Yeah.
reach out if you need anything else. Thank you all.
And I'm around this week. If you need help preparing anything, feel free to reach out.
Great, thank you, Larry.
Everyone.
Good night. Thank you.
Good night. Thanks.